everyone, my name is Gemma Francis and I'm here to host the Lions Roar podcast. This podcast is designed to inspire you as a Christian entrepreneur and pioneer and to help you on your journey. Today we've got an interesting topic. We are talking about conflict. Now this could get quite sensitive, so let's see what's going to happen. But we've got two amazing guests with us. We've got Gary Spicer, who is the Executive Director of Imagine the Day, the charity that head up the Lions Project. And we've got the Lions leader herself, Shell Perris, who is here to give us her thoughts. And I really want to dig in and see what you guys think about conflict. And I'm sure you've both had many situations over your careers where you've had to deal with conflict. And how difficult is it to deal with conflict, Gary?
Well, it's very difficult because, you want to win a fight. And the problem is that actually good conflict doesn't mean about winning a fight. I always like that statement, win-win. And sometimes it's possible and sometimes it's not. But I think that's where I set out really. When I'm going to speak to somebody about something which, concerns me, maybe performance, it may be behavior, it may be a conflict between two staff. It can be a number of things. And I think I give this a lot of thought, if I'm honest, because the aim to have win-win is a high stakes approach.
Yeah.
But I think it's the best approach. And I've always took this thing like, okay, this is heavy, what I may have to say. Have I got enough relationship? So if you look at a relationship as a bridge, and I'm going to take a message across that bridge, which is heavy, is that bridge strong enough to take the weight of the comment I'm about to bring?
Right.
I think that's really important.
Yeah.
Because it's not about I told them or they now know. That's not it. Good conflict resolution is about winning the person more than winning the argument.
Right.
And I think, so I set out, first of all, examining what kind of relationship have I got with this person? And is it strong enough to take what I'm going to say? If it's not strong enough, then I may just do a lighter suggestion to get the conversation going. If I do believe it's strong enough, then I might be a little bit more straighter. But I have a way of always spending 10, 15 minutes, just dare I say, warming up the conversation. I never go a bull at a gate unless I really do know someone well and, they can thump me back. But the issue for me is I want to win. So when I go in, it's like, if I got their heart, that now I can influence their mind or heart. Do they believe that I want the best for them? Or do they think I'm just trying to make me look good?
Yeah.
Or I'm just going in to sort something out? And so I think conflict resolution is a great challenge and is learnt over time through experience and probably making a few mistakes and probably letting a few people down, letting ourselves down. But I think also conflict resolution is something that has to be operated in every organisation. Otherwise, you get this suppressed frustration going on in the organisation, if I can term it that way.
Yeah.
You get a suppressed kind of like frustration going on in people. And none of us like confrontation and none of us want to deal with conflict, if we're honest. But if we want the thing to be healthy, then we've got to be bold and courageous. And so, my approach is if they can trust my heart, or if I've got their heart, I can influence their mind. And I see so many leaders not doing that, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
It's more about I've told them the truth and that's what God wants me to tell them.
Yeah.
And I don't agree with that. I think actually God wants us to bring truth, but bring in a context of grace and love. We've got to read the whole scripture here.
Yeah.
And God wants us to win the person. God's never out to destroy me. He's out to build me. And I should take that approach as well. So I think it's a complex gift and skill. It can be learnt, and often it's learnt through pain of failure. And I think a good, healthy organisation has leader and leadership that is not scared to confront. And hopefully, if we can nip things at the bud, we don't get conflict, we get conversation.
Yeah.
And so, when we say, I've got some conflicts going on, probably it shouldn't have gone that far. And so we've got to ask ourselves, we need to be more intuitive and more courageous as leaders to nip things at the bud. So we have conversation, we may have confrontation, but we avoid conflict.
Yeah. It's important that because you mentioned about relationship and about having a relationship as a leader with your staff and your team.
Yeah.
So how do you establish that kind of relationship to get to that point?
Yeah, well, it's over longevity.
Yeah.
It's over sharing life's experiences with each other. It's not just about a job. It's about when someone's struggling, you're there, and they know you're there. I'll give you an example. I was working with a very senior leader in education who I was actually their boss, but they were high up and also, not just high up in education, but in Ofsted, lots of things, and a very academic, clever person. And out of the blue, his wife suddenly died.
Wow.
And, in that moment, all of his academia, all his professional career kind of went out the window, as you can imagine, like it would for anyone. And I was obviously his boss at the time, and he wasn't a Christian. And I remember ringing him up and saying, hey, I'm really sorry to hear this. I'd love to walk with you or stand with you. Could I come and visit you? And he was very emotional. And he says, and I remember him saying, well, no one's ever asked me to do that.
Right.
And over probably 2 or 3 months specifically, I really kind of like walked with him, not professionally, personally, but what it did for us professionally was outstanding.
Right.
What it did in trust was outstanding, because he realized if this boss of his would walk through the way I did personally with him, he could trust me. And then when he trusted me, we could walk through most things.
Yeah.
Which we did.
Yeah.
And, there was a lot of challenges in that particular season within schools and everything. We had some really difficult decisions to take. But our level of relationship went a lot higher. Why? Because I think I walked through with him in a tragic time in his life. And I think sometimes you can't avoid walking with people, and we should, in my opinion. I believe in relational leadership.
Yeah.
But it takes time, it takes effort, and it can drain you.
Yeah.
But that kind of leadership builds trust and avoids conflict, but keeps conversation going, and you can deal with it.
Fantastic. And another thing you said previously was about seeing situations before they happen.
Yeah.
So like actually seeing that conflict is going to happen. Have you ever experienced that, Shell? Like seeing things ahead of time?
Yeah, and I think I'm not naturally a kind of person who will move things to conflict. I would much rather get it sorted out then and there. I wear my heart on my sleeve. Kind of sometimes you only have to look at my face to know exactly what I'm feeling, which is a blessing and a curse all at the same time. And I think what Gary said there is key, actually, is that, a lot of things can be sorted out with conversation, whereas conflict is almost the stage beyond that.
Yeah.
It's when things have gone so far, there's been so much stuff that's been left unsaid and untended to, that it moves beyond a point of being able to sort it out just through conversation. I think the other thing about conflict as well is that it's when it starts affecting your actions. So if there's something bubbling that isn't being sorted out, and then all of a sudden that something that's bubbling starts to affect the way you behave and the way you act, that's when it's turned from maybe a disagreement to a full-on conflict.
Yeah.
And I think it's trying not to let it get to that stage, so I think you have to be able to see things from other people's points of view rather than just seeing things from your own point of view.
Yeah.
Because if all you ever do is see things from your own point of view and don't look at what other people might be experiencing as a result of a particular conversation or situation or whatever it is, you kind of become so tunnel visioned that it's a negative.
Yeah.
It brings you to that place of conflict much quicker. You've got to be able to put yourself in the people's shoes of those that you're working with and leading to see things from their point of view.
Yeah, and it's about actively listening to them, isn't it?
Yeah,
absolutely.
There's a lack in this world of a thing called emotional intelligence. There's just a lack of it. And I think, I could put my reasons on that, which would get everyone riled today, really, if I'm honest. So I'm not going to try and do that and cause conflict. But the point is, emotional intelligence is needed in leadership to deal with conflict. I think, what Shell said there, we've got to be prepared to enter other people's worlds, not our own. We've got to go, what's going on in their life, or if it's a staff member or difficulty. And I think, one of the greatest skills that most leaders haven't got is a thing called anticipation. We wait for the train to hit us, then deal with it.
Right.
And I think, some of the greatest leaders that I know have this skill of anticipation. They anticipate a conflict, they anticipate something wrong, they smell a difficulty in a room of people. They're just really good at reading people and reading situations. It's like the smell of discontent, they can smell it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they're able in their own intuitive way to sniff out what's really going. And I don't mean secretly. They then anticipate. And I think, we sometimes as leaders, we wait for something to happen because we're scared of jumping too quick.
Yeah.
And I do agree. But I would rather jump too quick than too late.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I'd rather say to a person, hey, how's it going?
Yeah.
You know, or do a disarming question that gives them an opportunity to just kind of let a little snippet out that we can then explore together.
Yeah.
Or a group of people, whatever it may be. So anticipation is something that I think every leader should pray for. It could save them a lot of pain.
Yeah, definitely. But when we do come to conflicts that, you know, when it does come to that stage, and sometimes it does, you know, we don't anticipate, and sometimes we get to that stage, how do we resolve them then when we feel like it's got a little bit too far? Is it a matter of compromising? Is it a matter of just going with what the other person thinks? How do we do that?
Well, again, if something's gone pretty far, you've still got to have a conversation.
Yeah.
And you've
got
got
to start with that.
and you've
Yeah.
got to also kind of like have the ear before the mouth. Listen
Right.
before you speak.
Yeah.
A leader has to do that. You know, explain to me. I think, you know, Jesus was brilliant at asking questions that disarmed people. And I think rather than us going on accusation, or even if we know what the problem is, okay, I'm going in, we go, hey, can you help me understand? It's a great question.
Yeah.
Can you help me understand? Because that's saying I have no clue, I have no understanding. Now, I might have,
Yeah.
but can you help me understand gives a way for them to speak to you. Well, actually, you know, I can help you understand. You know, I've been really frustrated with you, Gary. You know, you've not taken any notice of the work I've done. You know, it could be
Yeah,
anything. It could be
yeah.
towards me or anything. And I think the ear before the mouth is really important, that they feel they've had room to speak. And, you know, another question then would be, okay, where does this leave us? You know, is there an opportunity to resolve this? Can you see there's an opportunity to resolve it? Again, another question, an invitation
Yeah.
rather than an accusation.
Right.
And I think, you know, this is really important. Those listening today need to understand an invitation is far better than an accusation.
Yeah.
And when you invite somebody and you meaningly, you know, you're not spoiling, you just go, can you help me understand? You know, is there a way of going through this together? Or is there something I can do to help you?
Yeah.
Is an invitation for them to solve their own problem or to work through with you if it's a person asking the way forward.
Right.
Now, sometimes you're correct, Gemma. You know, sometimes people say it's gone too far. I'm never going to trust you again. I'm never going to do this again. Well, then, you know, you have to talk about another route out. If I'm honest, you've got to say, well, you know, if this is making this situation too difficult to work with me, to volunteer with me, to be in the organisation, you know, sometimes we need mediation. That can help. But sometimes, you know, we always send them away, for me, to come back with the answer rather than me give the answer. Now, I'll help them discover an answer. But if I'm not careful, I'm being Mr. Controller. And they're waiting for me to do that. And I
Right.
want them to discover something.
Yeah.
And even go, you know what, I've prayed about this, or I've decided that, you know, I'm going to have to move on, or I'm going to have to change. And then I'm going to help that happen, not hinder it happening. I'm not going to be hard, because ultimately they've admitted that, you know, this is unresolvable. Now, that's always sad,
Yeah.
because I think everything's resolvable.
Yeah.
That's the way I go into everything.
Right.
But if they don't believe that with me, we've got no partnership to actually complete a relational restoration.
Yeah.
And I believe everything's restorable, but you need two. Or
Definitely.
you need the group to believe that.
Definitely. Definitely.
Matthew 18 in the Bible is a great chapter to read on how to deal with conflict.
Okay.
It kind of takes you through this step-by-step thing of what to do, really. You know, so in the first instance, sit down and talk about it. And if you can't resolve it in that, then get other people involved, potentially help them to get you through it. And it goes through this step-by-step sort of analysis of how to deal with conflict. And for me, that it's getting to that point of conversation as soon as possible. You know, so we were talking a little bit, weren't we, about, you know, are there any conflicts that we can dissect in front of people? And actually,
I thought
you
we
know,
said we'd be here for hours.
well, actually, it got us thinking about how we talk about things and move forward on things quite quickly. You know, so if Gary does something that does my head in, or I do something that does Gary's head in,
Never.
we'll sit down and we'll talk about it. We'll just say, that really annoyed me when you did that. What did you do that for?
Yeah.
You know, but we've got that comes out of relationship, and it comes out of trust. And I think trust is a really big part
Yeah.
of conflict. The more you trust a person, the easier it is to deal with a conflict. The more you know a person's heart,
Yeah.
the easier it is to deal with a conflict. Because if you know that that person ultimately is coming from a place of love and of acceptance and of grace and of forgiveness and kindness, that's much easier, even if there's something that's happened that isn't maybe showing those qualities and attributes. You know that it's coming from a place of that's who this person is. Maybe it's just a blip. If it's from somebody who you don't trust, or you know, kind of there's a lot of history, or there's, you know, all those kinds of things, you know, assumptions, expectations. Again, expectations can have a huge impact on conflict, because if you don't trust that person and you're like, well, of course they're going to behave like that, of course they're going to do this, you come to expect it, that creates more conflict. So I do think that level of relationship is really important, but it takes time to get there. And so I think for me, it's being real. And it's being able to say sorry when you've done something that has upset somebody else, whether it's intended or not. You know, so if Gary comes to me and says, Shell, you know, really wound me up when you did that, my reaction could be, what do you mean I didn't do anything wrong? But what I need to do in that situation is take a step back and go, okay, have I done something here that I need to apologise for? And be quick to apologise and say sorry if that's the case, if that's needed. Rather than letting it fester and become something much, much bigger than it needs to be.
I mean, unresolved conflict is, the end result is total division. And there's too much divisiveness that goes on in this world, in Christian circles, in churches, in Christian organisations. And it all stems from unresolved conflict. And I think, you know, most British, if I'm honest, don't like that confrontation thing. You know, I just want a peaceful life. You know, there are two types of people in this world, peacekeepers and peacemakers. Peacekeepers just want to keep the peace at no cost, and then generally something blows up. And there's peacemakers who actually will go to war to create peace. And I don't think that God's asked us to be a peacekeeper, because I think that's a compromise. I think it's complacency. It's just not right. You know, I don't want to have any conflict. You know, I'm not a person of conflict. I don't think anyone wants any conflict. But we still got to be brave to create peace. And I think that's where nipping at the bud, talking with people early, and making sure, you know, that, you know, it's that whole thing in it, divide and conquer.
Yeah.
And the devil uses that all the time. He uses it in our relationships. He uses it in our perceptions of situations, in organisations, you know. And generally, you know, something that may be right gets exaggerated in our mind as well. It gets exaggerated in others. And then the exaggeration of the hurt, the conflict just goes, this is unresolvable. But that's been the mind working over time. There might have been the whispers from someone, oh, yeah, I knew he'd do that to you, or I knew she'd say that. And suddenly we're building this big thing where a lot of it isn't truth.
But that's the fuel, isn't it?
That's the fuel.
You've got to be really careful how you fuel the fire in situations where there's conflict. You know, like gossip can fuel the fire. Other people's opinions of things, you know, you go and talk to somebody about it and you go, you'll never guess what she did or what he did the other day. And then they go, well, you can't stand for that. Yeah. And then all of a sudden it's just fueling this bigger fire. And when you actually come down to sit with the person and talk to them about it, it's so far from that.
Yeah.
It's so, you know, there was absolutely no intention, or it was totally different, or this had happened in their world. And all of a sudden, all these things that you've spent all this time fueling this fire with just is, the fire's out. It's like it's not even a spark anymore.
Again, another reason, nip the thing in the bud.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we talk about conflict here in this, you know, this podcast, but the issue is don't let it get that far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Be brave, be courageous, nip it at the bud. Ask a question, you know, bring a question rather than accusation.
Yeah.
Bring it, you know, bring a suggestion rather than a direction. We've got to be kind on people.
Yeah.
Even if they're wrong. Because we need the kindness of God in our lives.
Yeah, definitely.
And so it's that, you know, it's that speck and plank again, isn't it? You know, oh, I know what's wrong with Gemma. You know, I've got to talk with her with the plank in my own eye.
Yeah.
And so I think it's very much, let's keep out of accusation, but in that, let's not be unresolved. Let's be resolved, courageous, bold to sort these things out. Because what is at stake is often people's lives, people's destiny, and organisations' destiny.
Yeah.
And I have seen them destroyed.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't like it. I don't like seeing the devil win. I don't like seeing people get hurt, bitter.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, in this country, most people love Jesus but don't like the church.
Yeah.
And we've got to kind of like, I know the church is imperfect because me and you are in it, Jem. But the issue is grace again. So let's always look through grace eyes, not accusation eyes. But I think as a leader, we've got to nip it at the bud. We don't want to get to conflict. We can, and also we can disagree, but not live in disagreement.
Yeah.
So where me and Shal are at is like, we probably disagree, not a lot, but on some things. Let's leave it there, Shal. But what I'm determined to do is not live in disagreement.
Right.
Yeah.
And disagreement is that kind of like division. So we're not going to be divided, and we're mature enough to agree to disagree. And I think, any relationship that's worth having, you've got to learn to agree to disagree.
Yeah.
Because there's no way you and Howard are going to agree on everything, or any of us are going to agree with our spouses.
Yeah.
But the issue is, how can we come to a place of saying, well, I disagree, but I'm going to agree to disagree. Can we move on?
Yeah,
it's
move
not
on.
going to change the world.
It takes humility to do that.
It does.
I think you have to be humble. You have to have that humility to just say, I'm not always right. I don't always get things right. But I'm secure enough in myself to be able to come to you and say, let's talk about this.
Yeah.
Let's not let this build up.
Yeah.
So what's our motive at the end of the day? How I started? Are we here to win an argument or win a person? And I think that's a great question every leader has to ask themselves.
Yeah, that's great. That's really good. And as your role of overseeing so many different projects, I'm sure you go into organisations where there's already conflict with other people. So it might not necessarily be to you, but how do you manage that when there's conflict within the staff or the team?
Well, you're looking for obviously the seed cause of it.
Right.
You're looking at, if I'm honest, you always look at, first of all, at the style of the leader. You're looking at kind of how do they relate to their team. We can all blame the workforce. That's an easy one.
Yeah.
But, we do have to look in the mirror occasionally. So I'll get the leader to look in the mirror and just go, hey, where did this start? What's your feeling towards these people? And unfortunately, in some situations, the opinion of a leader over their staff is not good, and it's their fault all the time.
Right.
And I think, the blame game goes on. And my way is, first of all, let's get the leader to look in the mirror and see if he and she or she is brave enough to do that.
Yeah.
And let's start there. I will start with the leader. Even if there's, a woman or a guy that's causing trouble, I will start with the leader. What's led to this? Some things are resolvable there, but I mean, Shell's exactly right. It takes humility to own up. It takes that sense of, I want to win the person, not get them back or win the argument. And too many people, and I'm going to say Christians, want to win an argument rather than win a person. Jesus came for us. He didn't come to win an argument. And we've got to remember that. He died for a person. He didn't die for an argument. And I think, we die on the wrong hill too many times. So going into organisations, conflict resolution is generally complex. It's probably gone on for too long. So, you do believe in restoration and resolving it. And, we try our best to help that. But sometimes there's got to be changes as well, because the person won't humble themselves or take that place of humility. Could be the leader, it could be someone else. But I mean, there are unfortunately a lot of messes out there. And I'm sure they're not glorifying to God. But my whole reason of going in, which I must be mad, is really to bring peace and to bring a way forward.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to go on one side or another side. I'm trying to say, look, the devil's winning here.
Yeah.
We're all losing.
Yeah.
How can we turn this around to get winning again for him?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it's challenging, and sometimes we win and sometimes we don't. And winning is, again, not the argument, but a person to be humble and a person to go, okay, I'm going to hold my hands up. Okay, I'll walk with you while you'll do that.
Yeah.
And we'll get this place back to a healthy place. And, when I walk out and it's a healthy place, it's like, there is that sense of satisfaction in God, really, because I thought, devil, you lost.
Yeah.
And we can win again.
Definitely. Fantastic. Well, I know on the Lions course, the Lions program that you do, you've overseen so many different projects over the last 13 years. There must have been some examples of some delegates that have had conflict, maybe not while they're on the Lions course, but as their project has developed and moved forward. And I guess the Lions have always been there to help and support those kind of people.
Yeah, absolutely. I can think of one delegate at the moment who's actually having to take something to court because of a situation that they're in.
Right.
And, I know that she feels really uncomfortable about that. How as a Christian do you manage that whole thing?
Yeah.
And, we're there to help people in those journeys, because life is messy.
Yeah.
And the people that we work with aren't always who we expect them to be or would like them to be. Things happen that we don't expect to happen. And I think obviously through the different kinds of mentoring that we offer alongside all of the training and everything else, it's walking with the people, like the projects are great. The projects are absolutely brilliant, but actually the people that lead those projects are way more important. We've had a number of situations over the years where delegates have had personal circumstances that they've had to deal with during being on the programme, and into taking their projects forward. We've had really challenging conflicts where there's been personal conflicts that have been taking place where we've had to kind of come alongside and bring some real challenge at time. But I love the word that Gary used before, invitation. It's kind of that balance of challenge and invitation at the same time. It's like we're inviting you onto a journey. We'll bring challenge when challenge is necessary. But it's all from a heart of wanting you to become everything that God's created you to be. It's not because we want to put a dampener on things. It's not because we want to see you fall or fail. It's because we want to see you succeed. And challenge is part of that. You've got to have those people around you who are like, why are you doing that? Why are you behaving in that way? Why are you treating people like that? Because sometimes it takes somebody else to see it in us to be able to recognize that. And that's where the humility comes in as a leader, to be able to say, do you know what? I do need to look at that. You're right. Thank you for pointing that out in me. Not seeing it as a threat and a personal
attack.
I think, when we started off Lions, God told us to own nothing, but to take a walk with people. And I think over the 13 years of doing Lions, God invited us to go for a walk with a few people. Sometimes hold hands, sometimes lifting them, sometimes just encouraging them on, whatever it is. We don't own them. We don't own anything. We don't want to own anything. But if our legacy is that we took a walk with a number of people that went and achieved things for God in life, me and the Lord and Shell and the Lord, we can share some success because we're doing what he asked us to do. And it's when we deviate from what he asked us to do that we get in trouble. So our zone is we want to cheer them on. We're going to go for a walk with a few people, and we're going to hope that when they move on from us, they are much better people, much better leaders, doing a more effective ministry or business than they were when they met us. And we're going to keep cheering them on, and that's what we do. So I think that's the heartbeat of us. That's what God's called us to do. And if you do what God's called you to do, you're in a happy place, even though it's still challenging.
Oh, well, thanks, guys. It's been a great session today. It's been a little bit more of a sensitive one, but we've had some really good tips and advice from both of you on how to move forward with conflict. So thank you for joining us. And I hope that you felt inspired today, and I hope it's helped you a little bit on your entrepreneurial journey. Do get in touch with the Lions. We're here to help, support, and cheer you on your mission. Thank you so much for listening. See you next time.